And we're live. Hello, everyone. This is Sup Connect Live, sponsored by Sup Connect. My name is Kristen Thomas, and every Thursday I get to chat with super interesting people in the world of paddling about their passion and what they do. And I'm extra excited about this one. I know I'm always excited, but this is my boss at Sup Connect. He also, I know him from way back, an early adopter of stand-up paddleboarding, the publisher and founder of Sup Connect himself, Niemeyer, a friend, someone who I've just been given so many opportunities through, so knowledgeable, always love to chat with him. It has been too long, so this is going to be awesome to catch up, but just someone who really big picture and always knows what's going on in the whole world of paddleboarding and how it translates to life in general. So super excited, and you should be too. This will be a great discussion with I9 Media and Sup Connect joining us today. He's an action sports veteran and sup surfer, so many things. My friend, Andre, how are you?
All right, doing great. Excited to be here, talking
I'm
to a
super
legend.
excited that you're actually that background. We've seen it through the years.
We have a lot of history with this background.
Oh.
I think a lot of the top stand-up paddle talent in the world has been interviewed with this backdrop. So I know. I thought I was like, oh, I gotta have it. Let's set it up.
Gotta have it.
So,
I'm glad you're there.
Nice
And I'm so glad you finally agreed to this. This is episode 101, and I feel like it's Sup Connect 101. You're going to tell us all about that, but so much more and beyond. You were into stand-up super early. I know you're an athlete and have done lots of things. So give us your water background just a little bit before we really delve into the industry and everything else.
Yeah, so primarily competitive surfing background, but as a kid I played basketball and also swam competitively for the school, and then got really into and then after basketball I got into surfing quite a bit. My brother was the one leading the way, and it's since then he had the hook deep down. So I come primarily from the surfing background. I started shortboarding, and then I really found my passion in longboarding. So.
And then stand-up paddling came along, and you were in the early 2000s when most of us didn't start till the teens. Where'd you see it first, and what'd you love about it?
Right. So I surfed competitively. I mean, for me, quite seriously. I did quite a few contests. I ended up doing really well in the States, up against some world champions and whatnot. And so I was really big into longboarding. And in the beginning, you remember, what is this, like 2005, 2006, 2007, we start seeing stand-up paddlers in the lineup. And that was the first iteration of SUP, right? It was surfing. There was nothing else other than surfing. And surfing, you have limited supply of waves. All of a sudden, you got this guy with this big board and a paddle. In the beginning, it's like an oar. And we're like, well, you're not welcome here, Surfers, you're all fighting for a limited amount of waves. But then there was one day, Rick Thomas, a good friend of mine, a legend, one of the greatest names in the history of the sport, one of the greatest ambassadors of the sport. This is about 2006. And the surf wasn't good. And he said, why don't you give it a try? I was like, sure, I'm fairly competent, I guess, surfing. So I should be able to do well. And I just got owned I was so humbled. I couldn't figure this thing out. And I was like, now I got to figure this thing out. And I had a blast. I remember catching the first wave, and there was so much speed to it. And I'm like, and then I was like, this is so addictive. This is a bigger board. You're moving faster. And all of a sudden, what do you do with the paddle? And the whole challenge of creating art while holding the paddle and a surfboard, because that's what surf is. Unlike racing, you're not crossing a line. You have a canvas, and you need to do something with this canvas. And also you have the challenge of the paddle, and yet you want beauty, aesthetics with utility. So that was a very exciting challenge for me, and I embraced it. So
I love that. And you are a super graceful and stylish longboarder and sup surfer. And someone just gave you a shout out. Andre, my brown brother, miss you from the Brown Blur, another stylish surfer.
Oh, there we go. There we go. Yeah, yeah. It's like the brown guys, I guess, showing the way on how it should be done style-wise. I don't know, there's something.
Well, you are humble, but I know you have shown us the way in so many ways. So I can't remember where I first met you, but probably at trade shows. You were around. I don't know what we do first. I
By the
think
way,
so.
just as a side note, the blur Dave Baney, one of the greatest legends of the sport. So shout out to you, Dave. Just want to say you've given so much. And as hopefully this interview will show, we're here for each other, create a better world. And you are one of those bright spots in the history of my life, in the history of the sport. And I want to thank you for that. So thank you, Dave.
Very nice. That's beautiful. Yeah. So between trade shows and starting Sup Connect and really you did stand-up paddle racing as well as the surfing. What came first? What was kind of your chronology there in the early years?
So there was only surfing. And I don't know if you remember, C4 Waterman was the first stand-up paddleboard brand in the world, first exclusive SUP brand in the world. And they came out of Hawaii, Oahu, Brian Kilana and Todd and so on. So that was a great honor to be invited into this very small group of athletes that were starting something new. So it was definitely SUP surfing. And then it started showing in contests as well, the Coalition of Surf Clubs along Southern California. And I remember the first SUP surf contest ever, I think, that was won by a non-Hawaiian. It was the one, I think, down in PB Tourmaline. And I won. I was so proud. It's like such a landmark for me. And then Bob Long from Mission Surf Shop down in PB sponsored me. And I was like a little kid, like give me a sticker and help me out with the board and let's do this. So that was very exciting.
And were you in grad school at that time? I know you've
so
quite an education.
Yeah, so I was just graduating UCSD around then and starting postgraduate research at the Cal IT 2, which today is called the Qualcomm Institute. And I was looking at IT and media technology. Yeah, so it was right around that time. So
great stuff going on.
Yeah.
So the passion grew out of surfing to SUP surfing. Great people, as we've talked about, and we'll talk about the whole time. Where did the idea for SUP Connect? You were studying media.
Yeah, so it was right there. So you're putting your finger right on the vortex of the convergence of all of these things. So I had my action sports background. Here I am doing something that I love. I'm studying media and technology. In my postgraduate studies, I had been awarded a research fellowship, and I was doing some really exciting media tech studies, especially related to politics at the time. And all of a sudden I'm looking, okay, so I got my water sports background. I got this tech media background. And then while I was an undergrad, I was also the editor of the undergraduate philosophy journal. And I did quite a bit of writing and research.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So I was the editor, and I did fairly well in school. And so I had all those things come together. So I can tell a story. I can write. I love that. I got something I'm passionate about, this lifestyle. And here's tech. So I started with surfing, actually. I started a company called My Local Lineup as a hobby while I was doing that research fellowship. And it was a really exciting project. When you, as a surfer, you go to the lineup, and all of us, we think we have that Kelly's Later moment. Nowadays, I guess it would be Gabriel Medina, John, or something like that. But anyway, you think you are the hero, and there are photographers along the coast, and they take a picture, and you go home. It's like, shoot, if somebody had just taken a picture, I would prove to the world like how rad I am. And so every surfer in like popular coastlines, like we have this, FOMO, fear of missing out on that one shot. And I created this interactive platform. This was 2007. The web was still Web 1.0 for the most part, meaning you just present content. And I wanted to figure out a dynamic way of bringing photographers into the platform. So you have this one place you go to. If you're at the beach and there was a photographer, you don't have to search all the web to try to find your photo. You go to My Local Lineup. And he gained quite a bit in popularity. I didn't know how to code or any of that stuff. So I taught myself like 5 languages, and I started building and coding this thing with a $900 Apple laptop on a $99 IKEA couch. And then 6 months later, somebody said, "Oh, if you want to do interactive web right now, I got a $2 million starting budget." I'm like, "Go! I'm not asking people for that amount of money on something I don't know if it's going to work." So I taught myself with the help of a friend how to code and did some design. And off to the races, I created this interactive platform with some open source code where photographers created their account and they were uploading between 1,000 to 10,000 photos a day. So the user generated content was massive and people were coming and you started getting photographers up the coast. And all of a sudden we're beating at the time, Surfing Magazine in web traffic within 2 years of launch. I'm like, great, except that it was 2008. So the housing crisis had just hit very hard and it basically shattered the economy. We went into a recession. No one was spending a dime. So at that point, I launched a cable TV show, and it was right around then when SUP started becoming quite popular. I said, well, maybe there's something here. I love it. And I got all these media platform. Let's start covering it. And there were 5 websites in the world when I launched SUP Connect. 5 websites that covered stand-up paddling. And and then the rest is history. SUP Connect was born, and here we are. So well over 10 years ago.
Well over 10 years, yeah.
Yeah.
I know. I think we were talking about in the pandemic, we kind of lost track of time. Like, do we count it or not? Because things pivot. We'll talk about pivoting a lot and changing and industry changing.
Yeah.
So it's been quite a ride. It's been an amazing platform. It's huge. Your outreach, you send at least, your newsletter following, your online following on Instagram. You've really been, you've been able to maintain when a lot of people are gone or have not been able to keep that pace. So I know you've pivoted and grown, and you have a media company and do, just like your multi-sports, you do many different types of things in the media world. But I feel like this one's your baby and your heart's in it. And that I'm grateful that you've kept it going, and it certainly has stayed strong. Stand-up paddling itself has so many layers and so many types, and you seem to be able to cover it all and bring something to anyone who has any interest in stand-up paddling, even aspirational. How do you keep up?
Yeah, no, it's in business, and I think in life. It's easy to say when you're financially either independent or fairly stable to say, follow your passion. I think a lot of us have heard that message growing up, follow your passion. But when you're struggling, I come from nothing. Like my adult life, I worked at, retail jobs and had no means. So it's very easy as an adult to say to someone starting a career, just follow your passion. But that's what I was doing because that's what the grown-ups were telling me. And at some point you figure out, well, just follow your passion business. It doesn't work by itself. At the end of the day, you do have to pay the bills. And the good news is that stand-up paddling was growing. So I had a lot of wind behind the sail of SUP Connect to gain some traction. What we were doing was very authentic. It was very homegrown, very grassroots. And that resonated. It resonates to this day with most viewers, readers, and the industry as well. There's so much noise there, and here we are, like we're truly passionate and authentic about this. But then at some point, the ceiling, because we were so early, was still fairly low financially, right? So I then pivoted. People started asking, how do you do all this out of a $900 laptop and a $99 IKEA couch? I got a marketing budget, and we're not doing what you're doing. Can we hire you? So I launched this marketing agency. We're now in multiple different markets, and SUP Connect, we're an agency that owns a successful publication. And that has been a really nice story. We have, just like SUP Connect, we have long-standing clients as well. We see the relationship to people as a critical component to our meaning in life and in business. And SUP gives us that, right, Kristen? I mean, you can speak to that, the positivity of the experiencing SUP and how rich people's experiences and backgrounds are makes up, if somebody's thinking of a career, of just a place where you want to spend a lot of time with. You have such a cross-section of every single demographics, and you have people with so many interesting stories and so much to give. So I always talk about in life, our most precious commodity is time, and how do we allocate our time wisely? And I see it as surrounding yourself with the greatest people possible, and that's not at all related to the size of someone's bank account. And SUP brings that to the table. And so it's been beautiful to go from a community of surfers where you do have a limited supply of waves and you have an adversarial community because you're all fighting for limited resources, which is like a few select coastlines that have a few number of waves during a very specific window of swell, tide, to the right period and the right wind. And then you go to the whole world and you got SUP with all that, and the ability to share the greatness of that experience with amazing individuals. It's been life changing, and I think SubConnect it has been that platform where we share that passion, and the sole goal is to help people connect with paddling to experience that. So
People, connection, philosophy. You really have it all, Andre. And you're also known as someone with all the facts, the stats, and you have been such a huge resource. We have to mention that another thing that you started, you're very entrepreneurial. I mean, talking about how you got started, you approached me. We knew each other from racing and industry and an early company, Suplove. There had been a movement to get an industry association going on, and you and Mike Muir, it was, said, hey, we need some help. It's not happening on its own. How about you figure out how to get it started? So together we founded the SUP Industry Association with a few other people and pulled in some board members. And that was quite a ride too. And again, the vision that you have and the ability, I know any meeting we went to, they were always hoping Andre's going to share some details. So I'm sure today we're going to talk a bit about industry. I know we got some questions and trends that you see and numbers and things too. But I love that you always bring it back around to people. It is about people and heart and making those choices, because it's about life, and that life is not, I love that saying about going into, you end your life going in, sliding into home base, not, tiptoeing or being afraid. You definitely have been really bold in your actions and in creating great stuff. So thank you for doing that. Industry, so SubConnect, I9 Media, Industry Association, you've stuck with it the whole time, SubConnect.
yeah. So the industry association point, I think that's what you're trying to get something out of me here. So
Just a little.
yeah. So I think you always have to start with a vision and then ask yourself, what are the pragmatic follow throughs of that? So if you just pull back and on a very basic level, you ask, what is the one event or the one experience that made somebody stick to stand-up paddling and have a wonderful experience? And I remember walking around in the stand-up paddle world and asking, why do you stand-up paddle? Why are you so passionate about stand-up paddling? Because you also have different levels of enthusiasm. When you and I were walking around SUP-IA, those are all very enthusiastic people. And I wanted to see what did the trick for them. And there was a consistent answer to that question. All of them gave the same answer, and that blew me away. They said, the moment somebody put me on a great board and a great paddle, that was it. That glide hooked me for life. And I want people to experience that. And a lot of them said, and I had stand-up paddle before, but I had not had that experience of someone very knowledgeable putting me on the correct product to give me that glide. And that was a critical moment for me, because when I heard that question, the answer to that question, I realized very quickly that yes, you start from like 30,000 foot level. You got to create wonderful, positive experiences. Every marketer, every wealth management guy will tell you, "Oh, this is how you make money." And how do you come down from the cloud and you translate that to people's lives? Right there, that was it. There were a lot of people coming into SUP because, oh, here's a hot market. I can be an early adopter or have / innovator. I have a factory. I've done this. I can make money and be wealthy. And a lot of people were pumping out low quality products. And for me, it was very obvious that, okay, there are a lot of great brands, but there's a lot of noise as well. And how can SUP serve the community by helping educate people to have that positive experience. And how does that positive experience translate to business? Well, now they're sticking to the sport. Now they want a better performance out of the board. So they go from the first purchase to the second purchase. So now you have repeat buys. You increase the lifetime value of that customer within the brand. Out of that, you get advocacy because you're bringing friends and family. So you got cross-sell across different markets. And then if you're bringing in children, you now have a multi-generation lineup of consumer base for a specific brand. So here's, I think, how it all comes together. You have the passion. In Japan, they have this concept called ikigai, which stands for the meaning of life in a lot of Japanese culture. And it stands on four legs. One is passion. Yes, you have to be passionate about something, because if you're not, whoever is passionate about that will outperform you. And if you are even if you are a bartender, a receptionist, whatever you do, or a high-level engineer, and you're in the marketplace, the guy who's passionate about that is going to thrive. Okay, and you might be there mediocre, but why do something that you're mediocre at? Life is limited, right? So do something that you can excel at. So find that. Find something you're passionate. Because then on your time off, it's not time off. And that's what Warren Buffett always says, find what you love doing. You'll never have a job in your life. So find that passion. But here's where ikigai is critical. And this is where I think the baby boomer generation got it wrong. The Woodstock generation. Follow your passion, period. Well, passion without finances runs on fumes, and you have burnout. So you have to bring in the financial framework for that to work. Now, the U.S. is a very wealthy country, so you basically can spit at the wall, and most likely something's going to stick. But it's not the case for most people even in the U.S. and across the world. So you have to figure out, what is my cost of living? What type of job would pay the bills? And is there a job where I would be passionate about whatever it is? So you have passion, you have finances, you have to do something that you can be great at. So it can't just be passion because you end up with American Idol experience. I love singing, like, oh my goodness, get the hell out of this screen. So you can't make a living out of that. So you have to be able to excel at it. And then the fourth thing is something that gives back to the community, right? To the world. And so SUP checks so many of those boxes. The revenue stream and the growth trajectory in the side of SUP, it is a low ceiling in terms of how big this industry is. In the grand scheme of things, it's still an early sport. We're still in that first leg of the Moore's bell curve of the growth trajectory and the adoption cycle. There is a whole lot more there. I mean, we're talking about 10 years, right? Plus of industry. So there's a lot more to come, but SUP does that. It creates a positive experience. There's sort of a financial mechanism there. It gives back to community, and it has a lot of that. So, but then I brought in the marketing agency to help us along the way. So
amazing.
Sorry for the babbling, but
no, so much good advice.
So that the industry concept, bring it all back to your question. I hate doing this. I like being more poignant about my answer, more pithier. But the industry association was meant as a function to give insights for businesses to perform better in terms of better product fit with the market, be more efficient in their operation, and then identify opportunities to drive revenue. And my whole concept there is that if you have a strong industry with longevity in mind, then you can have a thriving industry. But it was a bit too early because SUP is still relatively small. And then you layer on top of that the diversification of interests that the internet brought about. It's like a prism. Before you liked surf, and then you come through the internet and everything that's available there. And especially SUP gives you that. And all of a sudden it opens up the horizon. So your bandwidth on budget allocation and even your attention span gets fragmented across different verticals. So now you're seeing SUP companies have SUP, Wing, Surf, etc., and Windsurf. So it's a good evolution to the consumer-centric experience.
Yeah. I had never heard of that Japanese philosophy. I just want to go back. That was fascinating to about the four pillars and everything. But you bring up so many good topics about industry and SupConnect, and you've kept it alive. From my perspective, at least, it seems like you're covering what's both the beautiful thing about stand up, but also one of the most challenging things in terms of what you and I did trying to find research is because it is multi-segmented, because it overlaps with a lot of different uh, groups and industries. Many people who had sort of blinders or only understood one area, didn't get that the big picture of stand-up paddling is really broad and does connect with, as you said, planet water. The idea that, there's more water than there is land on Earth, and there's the stand-up paddleboard can be taken on almost any water and used in so many different ways. Has that been a plus for SupConnect and you covering all kinds of things, or has that been a challenge, or both?
It is more challenging for businesses because before, when you have the gatekeeper of media, they would crown one sport, and it would be the sport of the time. So you had in Europe, windsurfing was all the rage for about a decade or so. So if you're a business, you focus on, that's the product line that I'm going to bring to market. These are the athletes that I have. You can run a very efficient and lean operation. Now all of a sudden, you're serving a consumer that has diversified interests. And now you're commanding only a sliver of that consumer's wallet. And how can you have a sustainable business in that? And that is a big challenge and is highly diversified. A world is, as a business, how do I capture the consumer without them losing your identity? This is one of the balancing acts that companies have to have. If you go too broad, you are now speaking to too many people and you're speaking to no one because you don't resonate. People are like experts. And so as SUP and SupConnect, we have certainly focused on being the experts for when people want to know, I want to learn about products, destinations, the who's who. We go there. And there is my first project, My Local Lineup, was the very concept there was, let's cover the lineup as it is, because Surfing Magazine and Surfer were just focusing on competitive shortboarding, which represented less than 1% of the surfers in the water. And I wanted a more realistic picture of the lineup. But what I learned very quickly is that you have very different cultures in the lineup, from shortboarder to stand-up paddler, longboarder, and so on. And so by trying to speak to everyone, you end up speaking to no one, because those are, in that case, they're mutually exclusive communities. So it's a balancing act. And then as a business, you go, okay, you got to bring in another product line to address another vertical. And is that the same consumer? I think it breaks down when you shift the consumer as a customer, as a company. If you are talking to the same person and you've established your authority, which is critical, you have to have that trust of that person. And that comes through great product, quality, great customer service, just every touch point along the way. From there, what else can I do to better support that person in experiences related to mine? I think that works. But the moment that you start shifting your target audience, now you got problems. And that was the problem with My Local Lineup. The target audience, they were different communities that were mutually exclusive. And as a business, speaking the different languages, you end up with a Tower of Babel, and no one is understanding what each other is saying. So,
oh, fascinating. So when we worked together, and you're doing SupConnect, there was this exponential growth probably till about 2017, especially that kind of 2011 to 2017. And then we did see a change, and we did see some companies leaves and pivoting. How did that affect SupConnect? How have you had to pivot over the last decade with SupConnect in different ways?
Yeah, so the great question was, okay, we're starting from zero, and here's a growth trajectory from like 2010 pretty much to about 2004, 2005, fast growth. And we didn't know what the ceiling was. And around 2015, there was a new variable that previous new industries hadn't encountered. And there was the ability of Asia to scale and expedite entry to markets. So when you had Rip Curl and Billabong, you had Mary and Joanne, making board shorts for the Aussie surfers on this specific coastline. And I think whatever their names were, I don't, that's not their names. Maybe it is. But it was just like a few women, maybe the wives of surfers, making amazing board shorts, and everybody's coming, I want those board shorts. So product design, manufacturing in the 80s and 90s and before was very siloed, and it wasn't on a global platform. It left oxygen in the room for those new markets to really develop a DNA, get a set of influencers, and then launch through sales channels into the global stage. That is not the case anymore, right? So with the speed of production and the scalability that Asia brings to the table, we saw an enormous influx of products on the market, and all of a sudden the brands that were following the previous business model of manufacture, selling to dealers, have a team, do marketing, and all of a sudden you're being pushed against the wall on margins with these products. They're just coming straight to market, and they're just striking a hot iron. And so a lot of those companies started struggling, and we saw several of those go out of business. And that was 2015 to all the way into about the pandemic. And that was real. And yeah, it certainly affected us. We saw our revenue drop quite a bit, and brands are trying to figure out, how can I have a sustainable and thriving business when I am competing with these brands there? It's basically an Alibaba, throw a logo on it, and you've got a product. And so how do you make it work? But you're having a maturing of the audience. The pandemic brought a huge influx of new customers into the space. And education is the long-term winner in all this. So if you educate people and they get to trust you, then you usually have a lot of longevity out of that. And that's certainly SubConnect. We're very thankful to a lot of our sponsors that have been with us, many of them for over 10 years, some of them continuously without any interruption. And we're very thankful to them. We wouldn't be here without them. And they're a lot of the amazing brands that have given a lot to this sport. And if you go to SubConnect, you can see who they are.
That's great. You mentioned education, and that's something I think has really been a plus for you being an online platform through the pandemic, because lots of people were really concerned that nobody was taking an actual lesson, and they were ordering their online board or whatever because the shop was closed, and they weren't able to make that connection, which you very insightfully named your organization, your company, and knew early that connecting, even though it's an individual sport, was important. But because you are able to educate online, people were getting an education and could get information from you. So is that maybe one of the things that has helped you remain just at the forefront of the competition and stay relevant through this decade?
Yeah, I guess there are some parallels here with SUP. We were a bit too early on many fronts, even going all the way back to my local lineup, my first project while I was still in grad school. I was a bit too early with the internet when I was approaching businesses and telling them, I got this website that gets more traffic than any magazine you sponsor. And you can sponsor for a fraction, pennies on the dollar. And I would deliver, 100x plus the audience. They couldn't even understand what I was saying. And it was like, obviously I've never delivered any babies, but it did feel like, like labor, pregnancy, childhood pain. Like it was just so tough to land an account. And with SubConnect, it was similar. I always thought that like print is just so limited in its distribution, and it's even limited in its format and what you can do. So I've been but the industry very slowly came around that. But then you're right, the pandemic accelerated the adoption of online and technology and digital. And we have seen record-setting audiences for SubConnect, especially in light of the pandemic. There was a rapid growth from 2010 to 2015. Then it started flatlining for a bit. And then the pandemic came and we saw a huge influx of just new people, record-setting audiences on our websites, the reach of our social posts, the size of our email database, to a point where now, yeah, on a monthly basis, we're reaching about 100,000 plus, 200,000 plus people. And that is, globally, and the US still a very large market, but internationally is also a very large market. And that's a beautiful, beautiful thing to see. So yeah, it's a double-edged sword. When you're very innovative, sometimes you can be too early. And my kids have a saying, I guess, in school is something like about first is the worst, second is the best, third is the one with the treasure chest. and there is a saying in business that innovators die and settlers conquer. And so you always have this challenge of being an innovator, that you don't want to be making all the investments to establish an industry. Sometimes it's better to just come in the second or third generation. So it is quite remarkable that SubConnect, as an innovator, as an original stand-up paddle website, out of the only 5 original stand-up paddle websites in the world, it is quite remarkable that it has continued without interruption and thriving today. So that's no easy feat.
Well, huge congratulations. I'm sorry if you did it the hard way because you were an early, but that is your spirit. And that's, I think, a gift to the world, is that you are someone who starts things, and yeah, maybe a little more work at the beginning, but we appreciate all that you've done. There have been some questions that were sent in, and while we're on industry, there's someone in Europe really interested in the American market. Particularly, what do you think about inflatables? This gentleman, Christoph, is from Germany, and he said 85% of boards are inflatables there. Is that somebody you know?
It might be the Christoph I know.
Yeah.
Hey, Christoph.
Pros and cons of inflatables versus hardboards. Any thoughts?
Europe was very early in adopting inflatables, and that's a function of the way that their cities are laid out and population density. They don't have big trucks, they have smaller cars. They don't have big houses, they have smaller apartments, and transportation, a lot of public and mass transportation. So that Europe saw inflatables reach 70% plus of the market share very quickly, several years ago. In the US, I think we're still early. Inflatables still have a lot to go. I do think it is a growth opportunity, not without competition. There are some brands that are doing a phenomenal job in balancing price point and quality. So companies have to get creative around that. But I do think that if, right now, a lot of the factories, so there's, in business, you're always looking at the now, near, and long term. And so in the now, so my comment as far as like growth opportunity, I think in the near and long term, inflatables are it. I think that the bulk of the world has not seen what a wonderful thing it is to have one backpack in your garage or in your bedroom or somewhere in the house, where you go on a special trip, or you go to the shoreline or the lake or the river, and you just take a backpack that fits anywhere. You can take it in the car, you can take it in the subway, and so on, and just have the time of your life there with that simple addition to the line of toys that you have. And the world has not truly experienced that. What we have right now, I think the inflatable market is still very small. It will take, I think, a lot of good work by brands and ambassadors and sales channels, people to get the market together. But I think in the US, that is a bright spot. And if you have a quality product, competitively priced, and as a brand, you're really putting a premium on experience, customer service, the touch points on the product, and the follow through, then it's a win. I know of one company, there are quite a few stories like that, but there are companies that start with very little, a husband and a wife sometimes, and they focus on those fundamentals of a quality product with amazing customer support through and through. And some of these companies have grown to 100 plus employees as a sub only company. So, and inflatables, a lot of that on the back of inflatables in the US. And I think there's still a whole lot to go.
Yeah. I mean, just anecdotally, I can say during the pandemic, everybody knew has an inflatable because that's what they were able to get online. I think the only concern there again is safety and education. And did they get the quality? Because that is an area that does have some subpar product. We want them to have a great experience that first time. You talk about experience and how important you said earlier about that right board and paddle and that type of thing. So, but as long as they are loving it and there's a transition, it gets them started. So whatever gets them started. But ice ups have such a place. I've traveled with them. You could check them as luggage, take them on an airplane, fit them in your car or on your boat. So you don't have to have the racks on top of the car. So you and I are both from surfing and hardboard culture backgrounds. Southern California is certainly deep in that from surf, but I think we are seeing that transition. But interesting to hear numbers and such.
But we
You
do
had a
have to
couple other
take
questions. Oh,
yeah, we're just on this inflatable point. We do have to take inflatables quite seriously because I do think that they are a double-edged sword. They are a growth opportunity on the one side. On the other side, they can be a serious liability to the sport for a few reasons. One is it's typically the lowest price point that you can find. And that tends to resonate with mass markets. And a lot of those low price point builds are very low quality builds. You get an inflatable and the hose of the pump doesn't fit the valve. You pump it up once and then the hose blows up and now you have a leak. One of the seams start leaking. To reduce the cost, you have less layers. The board is flimsy, so it's not as stable. Also, it tends to have less volume and it carries less weight. And a lot of the paddle doesn't connect as well. So you take one stroke and the paddle might break. And that is a liability. That's whoever has that experience, whoever spent 200 to 400 bucks and has that experience is very likely not trying that again anytime soon. It would take a lot of effort to bring that person back into the fold. So at the same time that I think it is a growth opportunity, is a liability, what we as SubConnect are trying to do is educate. We have reviewed hundreds and hundreds of products personally. Every review that you see there are boards that we receive, that we inflate, or if they're composites that we paddle, we weigh them. We have over 35 metrics that we measure consistently on every product, and we put it up there. Before every SubConnect, there are several affiliate scams of people who just drag and drop photos from brands and have links into Amazon and other sites. And that's a liability because there is no follow through of support there. And a lot of those products will not create the experience that is needed for that person to stick around.
yeah. And that experience is both sides, the business side of it. And as you said, the heart, and that those of us who love this want to share that passion. We want to connect with these people who have also found the water. So unfortunate that there is that other side of it, I think. Christoph also is asking about, he said SUP racing is what we mostly see in Europe when they talk about the sport, but what are the next trends? What are other trends in SUP?
It's all stuff to call it, right? Like foil right now and wings, like that's kind of a variation on SUP is, I think that right now in terms of the journey through stand-up paddling starts with an all-around board, and then you want to get a bit faster and have a better glide. So you start looking at longer boards. It's either a touring board or maybe you have local races and you make that investment into a local race board. And then from there, you might start looking at destinations. I remember when I started SubConnect, one of the most touching stories was just about a year or two into SubConnect, and we started doing destination pieces. We have a lot of featured destinations on the site, and there was this group of 7 women that reached out to us and said, look, I read the story about this trip to Costa Rica. We put together that exact same trip because we read your article and we had the time of our lives. And so I think that's pretty much the journey now, trying to identify different niches out of that. You've got river, you got the yoga, the Pilates angle, you have like SUP pups, right, with dogs, and there are a lot of niche markets like that. but I think we're still developing that core and trying to craft that experience. So having featured or signature shops that have a good lineup of products that can present your brand and the full experience of the brand authentically and well informed, that's critical. I just came back from Brazil, originally from Brazil, and they had all these terrible boards that weighed like some. There was one shop that had one place had great boards, another one had the boards that probably weighed 80 to 100 pounds, and you just figure like if somebody, because they're full of water, like these are boards that already have a whole lot more volume than usual. They have much heavier construction, and now they've taken water because they've been in the lineup there for like 2+ years. So there are a lot of business decisions in how do you refresh your rental fleet with one of your accounts to make sure that that experience is positive. How do you find margin efficiencies so that yes, you're giving better margins to your dealers, but you're also making the product more accessible online? How do you have follow through of experiences after somebody buys? What is your protocol in following up? And how do you connect that person to a local community? I think we're still in that stage. And I love what REI does as a dealer and setting up networks and workshops and all that. And I think maybe we should be looking at other more mature industries and trying to figure out what those things look like. I love racing because a lot of those concepts do trickle down into the rest of the catalog.
Yeah. Another trend he says, bike packing is huge trend all over the world. In my eyes, micro adventures and overnighters will be the next thing. I can add to that quickly. I'm guiding a trip next week. I wouldn't even say next thing. It's happening. Experience. You have mentioned that word a few times. What do you think about the experiential going out and destinations experience?
Yeah. Yeah, so we're still trying to figure out what that looks like. And there are a lot of the nice things that now SUP is a global sport and is figuring out efficient programs and effective programs that give people, the best experiences possible. And I got to say, I have traveled a little bit, not as nearly as much as you have, but I look at the photos on SUP Connect and even on social media and other sites that I've seen, and I want to go there. And oftentimes it's not that easy to get it all set up. Whereas like with biking, for instance, you have Trail Forks and you have MTB Project and several different networks and REIs and tours and people who have done it. A lot of these are parks and cities are involved. So maybe it's time for SUP to go from how do we keep the waterway accessible, which was a fight we still have in many places, to how do we work together with cities to create safe venues for tourists. You see places in the U.S. I think it's Arkansas, some cities in Arkansas or Kansas, they invested heavily and they partnered with private companies to invest in bike parks because overall it draws trade shows and people to the city who then spend in lodging, restaurants, and so on. So there are a lot of creative things, and I don't think we as SUP are nearly as advanced. Nowhere near as advanced.
And we need to connect with some of the existing, like the water trails and such that Kayak has set up and that type of thing. Well, that's perfect segue. Paddle Club, who just mentioned again, they are regular listeners. Irina and Damjan want to know from you a few things. What's your favorite place in the U.S., a favorite place in the world that you've paddled, and bucket list? We just talked about all the beautiful pictures and destinations that SUP Connect puts up. I'm sure sometimes you're drooling. Not always, maybe something, seasons of life, right? You're a family man and you're busy at work, but favorite places you've been and bucket list place.
So in the U.S., up in Utah, we've all heard about the Sundance Film Festival, right? And that's right on the Provo Canyon in Utah. There is a whitewater stream. Anyone can do that whitewater for the most part. It's not just a class one. It's really controlled by a dam, and it's very easy flowing water. It runs for about 4 miles, and it is absolutely stunning, just stunning. You have huge mountains that go up to about 10,000 feet. your altitude, you're at about 4,000 feet. So you got about 4,000 feet of mountains on each side of you, beautiful pine trees. As you go downstream, you have horses, right, like drinking from the river. You have wild turkeys flying across the river. One time I had to pull to the side and hang on to a tree because there was a moose with its pups in the middle of the river. And if you've ever come
Wow.
across a moose, oftentimes they're huffy and puffy and ready for a fight. And all of us on kayaks and stand-up paddleboards, we had to just hang on and wait for this thing to get out of the way. And even the water is very interesting because it's very mellow. You can't be a beginner. You need to be an intermediate advanced paddler. If you can be a beginner if you're there with someone who's advanced. But you have a nice mix of easy flow, a little bit of white water just to get you on edge. You have one bridge where there's a little bit of a wave where you can pivot and surf the wave. So you have all these elements, and the water is that beautiful crystal mountain fresh water. So you come out of that hopefully after a few dips. You want to go there in the peak of summer, so June, July, when it's really hot, and then go in a few times. Always make sure you read about whitewater before you do it. It's the most dangerous version of stand-up paddling. But that experience is almost like a religious experience for me. When we used to have the outdoor show in Utah, I try always to make the point to go there and do one run before the show. And when I did, I would show up just glowing because it was such an amazing experience. So in the U.S., that is it.
Amazing.
Internationally, yeah, I'll give you a place that I haven't been to, but I grew up in, and I would love to stand up paddle. So again, I'm originally from Brazil. There's a place called Angra dos Reis. It's south of Rio. It's a bay with tons of islands. The water temperature is about 80, 85 degrees Celsius. I don't know what that is. It's like around 30 degrees. And it's crystal clear. It's flat. It's a massive bay with a massive island that blocks all the swell. And on the inside, I don't know, you have hundreds of islands, something like that, with flat water and major bodies of water. So I would love to go back there because I grew up going to that place and have a touring board, strap up. And I would love to spend I don't know, a month from island to island, fishing and paddling and swimming. That's on my bucket list. And then surfing. But yeah.
Ah, both of
The,
those. You painted an amazing picture. I want to go
the
to both
yeah,
places.
the caves in Europe, they're amazing. There are quite a few places with incredible caves. Portugal, I think Italy also has some beautiful places. Every time I see that, it's just like, oh my goodness, this looks out of this world. So I would love to do that. Haven't done that yet. That's on my bucket list.
Yeah. Well, you're young, plenty of time.
Mhm.
We've talked a lot about industry, about the amazing SupConnect ride that you've had, but I know you feel strongly about people, about connecting, about that life isn't just about business and industry, even as good as you are at giving advice for all of this and the statistics and all. But talk more about like how sup and life dovetail.
Yeah. And by the way, I just saw some people here from Brazil. There's a place there called Arraial do Cabo. So there you go. Looks like Leonardo. Shout out, man.
Yeah.
There you go. I haven't paddled there, but it's also on my bucket list. So I was like, as you can tell, right? The 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 interplay of philosophical and pragmatic approaches to life, because I vision and execution go hand in hand. Vision without execution. My book is lunacy. It's just dreaming, and execution without the vision is just blindly walking. Hopefully not over the cliff. So I think we need both. And as I get older, and I shared this in a conversation we had before, is like, what the heck are we doing here? As humans, as youth or older people, just what the heck are we doing? Talking about what is business, right? Is it just making money? And I think that every experience, every interaction that we come across, that we have throughout our day, throughout our lives, is about having a positive impact on someone else. It's personal. It's not the whole talk of like, oh, it's not personal. It's business. It's not personal. Just just BS. That's not how humans are structured. And no one's going to be talking about your job when you die. Very few will. And no one will be checking really your uh, checking account, other maybe the people who inherit. So I think a lot of that is just how do we create positive experiences. And SUP is an amazing sport because of that. You're not fighting over a limited supply, like in the case of surf and waves. You have the world, we have our earth, which should be called water. And this planet full of water allows people of various backgrounds to come together and have an amazing experience of gliding on water. And if any one of us have ever heard of Jesus walking on water, that's as close as you will get to that. And he has such a magical feeling. And the most amazing thing is that you're sharing in this bounty of the world with people from every cross section of society, and a lot of people who have a lot to give in terms of life experience, not because they're just wealthy or not wealthy, but just what they have to share. Somebody is a competitive athlete. Somebody had a back pain and they're recovering. Stimulate paddling helps strengthen the core. Maybe it's a community fighting breast cancer. Maybe it's people trying to cross train because it's a competitive elite athlete in some other sport. Maybe it's just people coming to decompress after work. Perhaps it's surf, perhaps it's flat water, perhaps it's downriver, perhaps it's a yoga session. But SUP is really this prism of positivity that, when done right, can give so much to the world, deepen our appreciation for our natural resources, and really set the, I think, right approach to life of sharing and making a positive impact responsibly on people's lives. So it sounds very soft and, you know, I don't know, something that just like doesn't have much traction. But SUP has the mechanics of a lot of that, and I'm a big believer that action sports and the outdoor life brings a lot of that together. So yeah, that's what we're doing with SUP Connect. You know, it's just that's all we're doing, trying to connect people to a better life, and so far, yeah, this is
That's
hopeful.
beautiful, and I don't think it's soft, as you said. What's more important in life. Uh, are those things, and those sometimes feeling intangible, but those connections
It's a
again.
vision that translates right into
Yeah.
very realistic events. So
Yeah, I don't know if you can read on your side, but Anthony, who gave us a shout out earlier, he said we're two of his favorites. Do it individually, but as a community, as a family.
right, right,
Unplug, and both as family and connect personally, which is true. I mean, it gives so much to us, and then people seem to want to give back. There's a,
yeah. We need to stop in this world. You know, we just talk about money. We just talk about, again, based on the ikigai concept and how we should live life. Money is critical, and we should be trying to treat people right in terms of they're putting in their time for something. They need to be compensated to have a decent living. Those things are critical, but that also has to come with a positive force in the world, in terms of appreciation for our natural resources, the proper treatment of one another, the equity of what you give to someone, and being, you know, acknowledged and compensated and reciprocated on those terms. You know, that I think that's a life worth living, and SUP Connect is sort of an instance of what we're trying to do. And it has been absolutely an honor to serve this community. I couldn't have been more proud. It's not about so much what I take as what I hopefully give. And meeting people like you has been absolutely life-changing. You are one of the most amazing people, and I don't say that lightly. I'm actually a very harsh and hard guy. I don't know if you can tell. I have a lot of smiles, but I'm very critical and hard on myself and on people about a lot of things. And you're amazing, Kristen. You are
oh,
so
thanks.
positive. Always,
This is about you, not me.
you give so much, but it's people like you that keep us going. And that cannot be understated. Our athletes are amazing. Our brands are amazing. The sport in itself has so many layers of a great way of living life and a great activity to be engaged in. And
Yeah.
if anything, I'm sorry for talking too much, but
No.
I am truly, truly thankful for how SUP changed my life, taking me from the select coasts with waves and introducing me to a wonderful, beautiful world with amazing, beautiful people. And so, and hopefully SUPConnect continues to be an incredible resource. And when I die, that day will come to all of us. I hope that if anything, people can see we tried and we gave back and we tried to bring people together and create a wonderful experience for not just this generation, but generations to come.
Oh, that was eloquent. We need to recapture that and quote it somewhere. You have done that. You will continue to do that. I thank SUPConnect. It's been an hour. How'd that go by so quickly? Loved talking with you and catching up with you. Love what you do at SUPConnect. Thank you again for letting me have my little piece of it here once a week. I've thoroughly enjoyed it and continue to do it. It's amazing
Thank you
that it's
for
been.
everything. We're honored to have you
Oh,
running these. These are priceless. And I've met so many amazing people through SUPConnect Live. Thank you for making it happen.
thanks. And thank you for all that you do. And thank you for finally letting me interview you. You held off for a while.
Yeah, I'm a
But you,
worker. I like to make things happen. Like you said, I like the vision, but I like to see things through. So there's a
yeah.
lot of work behind the scenes, and we have an amazing team.
Yeah, thanks to Allie and Kiana out there who do such a great job for you and everybody else, I'm sure,
And
who
Sam,
works
Olivia,
hard
and
like you do,
Vic,
but with a lot of love and passion behind it. So, and thanks all of you who listen. We so appreciate this. It goes right to IGTV. You're going to want to tell people who missed this to come back and listen. It will be on YouTube soon on the SUPConnect YouTube channel. Joseph, you're welcome. Samantha, we're so grateful for all of you who listen in and tell your friends about it. And we're going to keep it going. And you're going to keep SUPConnect going.
thank you, Kristen.
Thanks,
Have a
Andre.
great day.
Mwah. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.